My name is Emma Wonsil. I use she, her pronouns. I graduated from the Ethics and Society program in 2019, so 5 years ago now. And I am a social worker at a community behavioral health agency that's stationed next to an emergency shelter. Yeah, it has been a meandering road for me. I think like in undergrad, I had always been like going to like for physical therapy or something. And then like I ended up taking 2 ethics classes my senior year. And I just was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this. I'm so fired up about this. I'm gonna start looking into graduate programs around this. And I found the Fordham program. And then I had talked to one of my favorite professors and they were like, oh, I also have a connection there. And so it kind of seemed like divinely ordained, I guess, that like Fordham popped into my path. And so, yeah, then I went and did the program, loved it, and then was really psyched to kind of like get back on the ground and like work with people and kind of be in like, all right, I want to be in these like very applicable situations and kind of just do that like direct interpersonal work. And so I started working in community behavioral health here in Washington, and then eventually that led me to get my MSW at the University of Washington, and here I am today. There's so many ethical dilemmas that we face here in community behavioral health. I think particularly like we're like living at the intersection of like a vastly underfunded like mental health system and public substance use in maybe a way that it's never been public before, and affordable housing crisis, and so lots of problems. There are lots of ethical problems, particularly when we're thinking about like the power differentials between like a lot of the folks that we're working with and like the power that like I have. But I think like some of the big ones that we encounter a lot now just in social work would be like ethics around like involuntary detainment and mandated reporting. So like someone being detained against their will due to like grave disability or concern that they're going to be a harm to themselves or others. And then mandated reporting being, you know, if I suspect harm or abuse of like a child or a vulnerable adult, I have to tell the state whether or not that's something that like the client wants to be disclosed. And I think because of my time at Fordham, when we have situations come up like that, which is a lot, and we're really weighing like what is the best thing to do, I feel so equipped to be able to sit down, you know, with my supervisor or members of my team, or even members of like outside teams, so like other providers like doctors or nurses, or other social workers, and really be able to like map everything out so that we can consider all the possibilities. And I think, you know, like that's something that we did all the time in class. And so we're really practiced in defining like, what are the possible impacts, even maybe the ones that we don't want to happen, who's going to be impacted by this, who are like the stakeholders here, and then like, again, how do we account for these like huge differentials in power dynamics? And I think like my time at Fordham really gave me the skills to look on that in like a micro level, so like me sitting across like in the interpersonal level with like a particular client, but also really gave me the skills, I think, to zoom out and like look at the like macro factors, like, okay, what are impacting all of these things on a systemic scale. So right, like for example, involuntary detainment, who's getting detained the most, right? Like we know it is certainly disproportionate with like poor Black and brown people. And why is that happening? And okay, so like how does that impact how, like what does my micro practice look like? So definitely things like that. I think like 2 classes come up. I like cannot talk about this program without talking about Brian Massengale's sexual ethics class, which maybe isn't like really directly necessarily related to my career path. I mean, it certainly comes up when I'm like talking with queer and trans clients who are maybe coming from like a faith background. But that's like probably personally the most meaningful class like I've ever taken in my life. Like truly all of my friends have heard about this class. I reference it all the time. It like knocked my socks off. He like just went through the entire like Christian sexual ethics project and like then just brought us up to like people who are doing really amazing work now. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. He's an incredible teacher, and also like for someone who identifies as Catholic and is also a lesbian, like to have, you know, Brian Massengale teach you sexual ethics was just like so empowering, very cool. So that's a big one. I think I still like do a lot of that work, particularly in the Catholic space, maybe like outside of my professional life. And then for my professional life, probably Thomas Massaro's Religion in American Public Life class was really cool, which like somehow keeps getting like more and more relevant as time goes on, scarily. Particularly because I work in a religiously affiliated nonprofit that's providing healthcare. And so I think that's given me a lot of really helpful frameworks and like language to use when we're experiencing like tension at that intersection. So yeah, definitely a shout out to Father Massaro as well. I don't know if I have advice for current master's students. I feel like the last few weeks I've just been really inspired by seeing like what Fordham students have been up to recently. And like they appear to be like really living in their values and like communally putting those values into action every day. So I don't know if they need advice from me, but I would definitely say just like keep doing what you're doing and like keep taking care of each other. It's cool to see you guys out there.